like to start now with our first keynote speaker, a lady from our community, Michelle Kelley. She's a licensed counselor and owner of Girls Stand Strong, a counseling practice in Warrenton, Virginia. She specializes in helping women and girls build their self-confidence. As an educator, Michelle teaches classes on standing up to bullying. She writes for several local publications on today's empowered woman, helping women claim their voices. Please give a hand for Michelle Kelley.
This gathering of women here today is a nice example of what women do best. We support each other, both personally and professionally, empowering ourselves and each other. When I stepped out of my comfort zone 10 months ago and started my own business, it was scary. I didn't know what to expect. And what I found was a wonderful community of women who wanted to support me and who were there to encourage me. A lot of them are here today. There are a lot of women entrepreneurs in our community. And before that, my mother, my grandmothers, and my aunt supported me. And the message there is, none of us do what we do alone. We are always surrounded by a group who is supporting us. And this is what women do best. The topic of today's forum is Empower Your Dreams. I will be speaking to you about today's empowered woman and claiming your voice. We will take a look at the evolution of women's empowerment in our country, as well as looking at 3 specific individual women and how they have claimed their voices. And then I'll share a little bit about my story with you. So let's start with talking about our voices as women. It is my personal and professional experience that women in our country, as well as many other countries, have not had the opportunities to develop our voices. When I speak about a woman's voice, I am talking about her opinions, her thoughts, her feelings about something in her life, her relationships, how she expresses herself in whatever her unique way is. It may be through caretaking, through her business, through mission work or art, or simply through her relationships. Our voices are so much more than sounds that come from our mouths. Our voices are how we express our authentic selves. And speaking to you here today is one of the ways in which I express my authenticity. Generally speaking, we are a male-dominated society, though this is slowly changing. My family was no exception. I was raised in a male-dominant family. I don't recall being asked my opinion about politics, education, which college would be best for me, or much of anything else. This wasn't because I wasn't loved or valued as a child, but rather because there were hidden messages woven into the fabric of my family. These messages had been there for generations. These messages targeted the women in my family. These messages were, be nice, be kind, be pretty, be supportive, be quiet, don't be too visible. With messages like these, I was destined to become June Cleaver. But instead, I'm here today talking to you about women's empowerment, hoping to be a catalyst for change and growth in your life. So let's start by taking a look at the evolution of women's empowerment. I've chosen several milestones to highlight that are a nice example of women's empowerment. In 1920, women earned the right to vote. In 1932, Amelia Earhart makes the first solo flight by a woman across the Atlantic Ocean. In 1933, Eleanor Roosevelt transformed the role of First Lady. She was the first president's wife to hold regular press conferences, go on the lecture circuit. Her social activism gave a voice to minorities, the underprivileged, to the powerless, and to women. In 1955, Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat on a bus to a white man, thus sparking the U.S. Civil Rights Movement. In 1963, Betty Friedan spearheaded the feminist movement. This led to the Equal Pay Act, which prohibited paying women less than men for doing the same work. In 1981, Sandra Day O'Connor becomes the first woman on the U.S. Supreme Court. In 1984, Geraldine Ferraro becomes the first woman nominated for vice president by a major party. 1993, Janet Reno is the first woman attorney general. In 2005, Condoleezza Rice is the first African-American woman to serve as U.S. Secretary of State. 2007, Nancy Pelosi becomes the first female Speaker of the House of Representatives. In 2008, Sarah Palin becomes the first woman to run for vice president on the Republican ticket. 2 years earlier, she was the first female governor elected in Alaska. Also in 2008, Hillary Clinton becomes the first woman to become a leading candidate for a presidential nomination. In 2009, Michelle Obama becomes the first African-American First Lady of the United States. And lastly, in 2012, Darla Moore and Condoleezza Rice are the first females to join the formerly all-male golf club, the Augusta National Golf Club. That was wonderful. It's interesting to notice how women are becoming much more visible, especially within the last 20 years or so. We seem to be approaching milestones at a much faster rate. When talking about empowerment, it is important to realize that our paths are all different, our stories are all unique. It is a journey, it is very personal, it is a process. So now let's take a look at 3 individual women and look at how they have claimed their voices. The first woman I chose is Oprah Winfrey. Oprah was born in Mississippi to unwed teenage parents. She had a difficult adolescence living with her mother. She was sexually abused as a child by male relatives as well as friends of her mother. She then went to live with her strict father in Nashville, Tennessee. There her life started to turn around a bit. At age 18, she won the Miss Black Tennessee Beauty Pageant. In 1976, she was the talk show host for AM Chicago. In 1986, she had her own syndicated television show. Her talent was in knowing how to reach middle-class America. She set herself apart by focusing on self-help issues. She created O Magazine and the Oxygen Network. She is the richest self-made woman in America. She achieved a level of success and influence like never seen before in our popular culture. Oprah was born into poverty. She dealt with considerable hardship before becoming the person she is today. So Oprah's message to us is, if she can do it, then so can we. This doesn't mean that we are all destined to be famous and rich and in the public eye, but it does mean that we are all destined to be great in our own lives. It means that we have the capability to create our futures, the capability to feel the power and the joy that comes from doing what excites us. We have the capability to focus on the positive, to embrace change, as well as embracing falling down and making mistakes, because we all do that. And finally, we need to remember that we always have a choice to think bigger, because it is our birthright to expect great things. This comes in part from recognizing what our authenticity and helping other people to connect and recognize their own. The second woman I chose is Condoleezza Rice. Condoleezza grew up in Birmingham, Alabama in the 1960s. Her childhood was relatively sheltered from the segregation that was prevalent during that time. Her parents instilled her with self-esteem and encouraged her to be whatever she wanted. She came from a well-educated family. She pursued education and politics from early on. Though she has been fortunate, she has also experienced her share of racism. She tells a story about her high school guidance counselor telling her that she's not suited for college, never bothering to notice that she had all A's in her advanced courses, as well as being an accomplished pianist and ice skater. She refers to this as a quiet form of racism. She's also had to deal with her share of sexism, which she says usually comes in the form of, "How did you end up doing this?" She states that her most successful weapon against sexism and racism is her own abilities and intelligence. So what we can learn from Condoleezza is that we all have our own abilities and intelligence to rely on. Our intelligence is more than merely book knowledge. It is also our emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is something that is slowly being recognized as valuable in our society. Finally, I think of emotional intelligence as being one of the gifts of being a woman. We tend to be very relationship-oriented and very connected with our feelings. This is a strength. The third woman I chose is Diane Sawyer. Diane was the first female correspondent on 60 Minutes. She is the current anchor of ABC World News. She blazed a path for women in broadcast journalism. I chose 3 quotes from Diane. I thought we could all relate to these quotes. The first quote is, "People assume you can't be shy and be on television. They're wrong." So what Diane is telling us is that she is shy. In spite of her shyness, she is on television and has had a very successful career in life. So whatever it is that might be holding us back, we too can push forward in spite of whatever that is and become successful in our own lives. The second quote, "Whatever you want in life, other people are going to want it too. Believe in yourself enough to accept the idea that you have an equal right to it." So basically, there's enough success for everyone. Similar to love, joy, and happiness, you cannot run out. It's not as if one person gets a bigger piece of the pie and then someone else gets a smaller piece. It doesn't work that way. The third quote, "Really great people make you feel that you too can become great." The message here is simply, pay it forward. It feels good. Here's my story. I was born in Washington, D.C. I grew up in Maryland and Northern Virginia. I was very quiet and shy as a child. I struggled to find my voice in a family where I felt very overpowered by my father. My mother had a quiet strength. Together, the combination of my parents' personalities created an environment which would help me grow into my authenticity. I had my struggles as a child, like most of us. When I was 19, I failed out of college in my freshman year. I had to come home, take a semester off, go to work. I was a bit humiliated and depressed. My parents put me in therapy. That changed my life. In therapy, I learned to know my voice. I had a safe place to practice. I slowly began to claim my voice as I explored my own thoughts and my own opinions. I worked through some of my own issues, gaining confidence and clarity, and the process continues. Similar to Condoleezza Rice, I also performed poorly on my SATs, as well as my graduate school entrance exams. The way I got into graduate school was by requesting a personal interview so that I could explain to them how I was capable of doing the work. I did get in. In my family, I experienced women being held back. Similar to Oprah, I knew that my path was going to be different. Though my mother had unfulfilled dreams, she made sure that I had the opportunity to fulfill mine. My parents strongly emphasized the importance of getting an education, and education is something that no one can take away from a person, and education breeds confidence. In 2004, I was divorced after 10 years of marriage. A marriage in which my self-esteem had been at least partially fractured. As is so often the case, when we go through painful situations and difficult times, we can come out on the other side with more empowerment and confidence than we could have ever imagined. Since my divorce, the direction of my professional life has become more clear. As a single mom, I greet each day with the challenge of balancing family life with a career empowering other women and girls. And so far, I feel successful. A major goal in my life is to pass on to my two daughters, ages 11 and 14, a legacy of empowerment and girls standing strong. I, like many of us, want to create a new model for my family. It is a wonderful time to be a woman, no matter what you've been through thus far in your life. It's never too late to awaken to the possibilities inherent within your potential. We don't have to wait to claim our validity as women. We don't have to wait for our children to grow up, to get married, to get divorced, to get a degree, to lose weight, whatever it is that's holding you back. For many of us, myself included, we may feel our own voice has been stifled at times. So we need to begin by giving ourselves permission to let our own voice come out. Take a risk, step out, speak up. I did. The more you do it, the easier it will be. It is so freeing to hear yourself voice your own thoughts without fear of repercussion. The thought that I would like to leave with each of you today is that you have so much talent, potential, and uniqueness. So many gifts to give yourself, your family, and the world. I want to give you permission to share all the different and wonderful aspects of your authentic self. Thank you. My business is Girls Stand Strong. My background is I'm a counselor, and I've been in the Fauquier area working for almost 6 years now. As I said earlier, 10 months ago, I decided to take my message outside of the office. As a counselor, I spend a lot of time one-on-one, and the more I worked with girls and women, it became very clear to me that this was my passion and my mission, and I have a message that I wanted to give girls and women to help empower them in their relationships and help them claim their voices. So I started by offering classes for school-age girls on developing their voices, standing up to people in their lives, bullying, difficult situations, that sort of thing. I have a split passion though. I'm also very passionate about working with women and helping women to claim their voices and step up in their own lives. And I am just so happy to be a part of this community because I had no idea that I would be welcomed with so much support when I decided to step out of the counseling office. So I am a counselor, but more and more I want to be doing writing and speaking because my desire is to reach larger groups of girls and women.
Thank you. Next question?
Michelle, can you talk a little bit about the kinds of pressures or social pressures you find your clients dealing with these days?
Women or girls?
Both. Let's start with the high school girls, since I have high school daughters.
With girls, there is so much pressure. Pressure that comes from society, pressure that comes from our culture, pressure that comes from the media, pressure to be a certain way, pressure to be the good girl, the people pleaser type, pressure to be the sexy girl, if you watch some of the shows that are on TV right now. So a lot of times when girls are forming their identity in middle school, they're struggling. And so that's definitely something they're trying to deal with. As well as the pressure comes from within them. So with all these girls, they're internalizing what they're taking in from the outside, and they're looking for help and guidance. And the hope is they're getting some of it from their family, and they're getting it from some classes. And I would like to see there be more talk in general about what it is that girls and women are really going through, so we don't have to put up such an act as if we're always okay. Because the standard answer you get from a girl when you say, "How's it going?" "I'm good." I get that from my daughters all the time. So, but we have layers to us. So it's nice for girls and women to know that we can be honest, we can be ourselves, and we can say, well, things are generally good, but, you know, I've got some other stuff going on. Women have the same kind of pressures in a way, but now because there's so many more women in the workforce that I think there's a lot of pressure to be superwoman. So now we've got women who think, like me a little bit, that not only are you a single mom, but you have to have the career and you have to be super mom, and I'm not at homecoming festivities today, my dad's helping out, I'm here instead, and we split ourselves. So we also need to give ourselves permission to choose where we want to put our focus and be okay with it, regardless of what other people are saying to us or what we imagine other people are thinking and saying, because sometimes that element of judgment comes in.